Yes, so on this one, I've got some repairs to do in the Mini. Just having a little bit of some overheating kind of coolant issues or whatever. I also am planning on doing some upgrades, so let's get to it. So when I was at the roll races, I noticed I was getting some coolant, kind of a coolant smell. I had some like kind of here, I wiped it up a little bit. You can see it a little bit there, some of it there. I think it might have been coming from either this fitting here or the fitting going to there. It kind of sits down on the block. It's also kind of wet around here, so I don't know exactly what it's coming from. I think what I'm gonna have to do is I'm gonna drain the coolant. I'm gonna pull this off, look it over. This one I was able to move a little bit by hand, so I think I'm gonna reseal here. I might maybe use some silicone on this when I put it together. I'm not entirely sure what to do with this. I know these things have problems with cracked reservoirs, so it might just need a reservoir. I have this one, but it's off an R53 and it's different. Like the hose on the bottom is a lot bigger. So I don't know if I can use that one or not. Another familiar sight, bumper's back off. Draining the coolant right now so I can, and then I'm gonna take this off of here and take all this crap apart and see if I can reseal that and hopefully get rid of this coolant leak. And then I'm gonna start tackling, taking the belt back off because we're gonna put a smaller pulley on it. So I take the front bumper support off, and man, it totally didn't even cross my mind how much of a pain in the ass that was gonna be, because I totally forgot that I had this bolted on. I had like a bunch of zip ties, and like, yeah, it's a lot more work to take that on and off now. It really sucks. All right, so I got the belt off and I got the pulley off. So now we're gonna put this pulley on. So you can see the difference here. 105 versus 120. This was getting, 6 to 7 pounds. This one, I should get somewhere between 12 and 14. I'm not entirely sure. We'll find out once we get it on there. I got that 105 pulley started on there. Now we're gonna see if I'm good at guessing belt sizes. I had a KO7 685 on here before with the other pulley, so I got 677. Hopefully this is the right size, because I really don't want to make a bunch of trips to the parts store, but we're gonna find out. Just what I was expecting. It's too loose, so now I need to get a different belt. Great. All right, so I had this one laying around. This one is a 5070670, and this one, I mean, technically it would work, but it's like almost at the end of the travel on the tensioner, so technically it should be a little bit tighter. Granted, this is a used belt, so if I had a new one, it'd be a little tighter, but I don't know. I'm hoping I can find one a little bit shorter. I found that like a 663 exists and a 668, but only in Dayco brand. Obviously, Gage is better, but I think that's going to be my only choice. So I think I might have to go get a 663 and see if I can get it to work. So I really like to have this tensioner, not totally maxed out. I want to have it somewhere in the middle of travel, so it's got pretty good preload on it. So I guess I'm gonna have to go get another belt. So I got a 663 belt. The problem that I'm having now is that in order to get the belt on, this thing has to be totally maxed out, and then I have to loosen this pulley to actually get it on there, which I guess is good because it'll be nice and tight. But the problem being that, I don't know if you can see it, but it's hitting this weld that I had done. So I need to grind this all back so the belt isn't touching here, which it was touching before, kind of right there. And it kind of wore through enough that it was fine, but I'm gonna have to grind it quite a bit further back. All right, well, that was a huge pain in the ass, but don't know if you can see in there, but it looks like I've got enough clearance. It's probably not gonna focus. But there is just barely enough clearance after grinding that shit down. So I think I'm gonna be okay. And so I did a whole bunch of work to this cooling system off camera. This frickin' thing, I pulled it off of there. I figured out that it was actually leaking from this thing because it wasn't totally tight. Well, the problem was you couldn't tighten it up all the way because it'd be in the wrong rotation or whatever, it'd be clocked wrong. So I ended up having to freaking grind the inside of that like numerous different times until I finally got it to clock to about the right position. And then I had to like seal everything up, and like this thing didn't want to go on, and oh my god, it was such a pain in the ass. But it's on there now. And guys, I'm having a rough time over here. I just like made a giant coolant mess. I got coolant like absolutely everywhere. I was like trying to pour into a freaking gallon jug, and like the thing started to tip over, so I tried to grab it, and then I knocked something else over, and coolant was just every freaking where. But yeah, the cooling system's filled now, so I guess I can put the front end back together so I can start it. Together, got it running. There's still a bunch of things that I need to do, like this blow-off valve. I've got the new one, but it's interesting. It actually sits up like, I don't even know, maybe that much higher than this one, which everything I've read is it's the opposite, which is really odd. So I don't know how well it's gonna clear. I did notice that I think this bolt right here is actually hitting right here. I think that's what that's caused by. So I'm gonna have to cut that out of there. I mean, especially if the new one is actually taller, which looks like it is. But I think for the moment, I'm gonna run this because I really want to go and drive this thing. Because I'm kind of running out of time today. So I'd like to, go drive this thing around, see what it's like. Because obviously I have enough fuel with this fuel pump to support whatever boost that thing's gonna make. I got my new fuel pump here. I just need to take the time to put it in because I only have to, install it, but also got to rewire the wiring going to the fuel pump so it'll actually, put out what it's supposed to. So I'm gonna finish bleeding this. Which, if you guys haven't ever seen one of these Lyle funnels are great. They freaking screw right on the bottom. It allows you to purge out the cooling system. You got a little stopper thing. They're great. I vacuum bled the cooling system, but even after doing that, it was a little bit low, so I ended up having to add some. So I put the funnel on there. I'm just running it for a little bit, and then I'm gonna shut it off, and making sure that all the air bubbles are out of there because we don't want that problem. And then maybe I'll try and go drive it. Okay, so I changed my mind, and I decided to put this on anyway because I was revving it up, and I was noticing that because there's so much more boost because of the pulley, this wasn't opening up as well. So I was like, well, I'll put the new one on there because it's got the softer spring. But so don't believe everything you read on the internet, because I had to put this, legit tile blow-off valve on this eBay flange with the eBay clamp, because apparently the angles of where the V-band goes on there are actually slightly different. And you can't put the aluminum clamp onto here because there's not enough room. It just physically will not fit. So yeah, that really sucks. I should have freaking just waited and put the right freaking flange on there. But yeah, so I guess now I'm gonna cut this out and hopefully the hood will shut. The interesting thing, guys, is now that I'm looking at it, so the legit blow-off valve, there's actually a bigger opening right there, and it sounds a little bit different. Interesting. All right, so I was right on that. I made the first pull I made. I didn't get it on video. I don't have my GoPro with me. I'll take some videos later. But it was hitting. I hit 13.4 pounds at 7,600. Got a hell of a discrepancy here. It's definitely pretty lean, so I'm gonna have to make some changes and then go make a pull and see where we're at. So I'm not entirely sure, guys, but I think the fuel pump might have just given up. Yeah, because it didn't really richen up from last time. I'm gonna make one more change just to try it again, just to make sure. But the injector duty cycle is saying like 83% on, or 80. I guess that's 85% on. Yeah, on some 1050s, and I don't think it's making that kind of power yet. So yeah, I think that yeah, this fuel pump might have just given up, which is weird because it definitely was making more power on the bottle. So maybe it's just the way the fuel is delivered. It can't push enough through the injectors or something, or it can't keep up with the fuel pressure regulator. I don't know, but it definitely doesn't seem right, that's for sure. Yep, the fuel pump's definitely given up. I richened it up and it's still lean up on the top. So yeah, I guess I need to put that other fuel pump in to fix that problem. Okay, so it's a different day. Back in the garage working on the Mini again. So, you know, I was having a problem with, like, when I was driving it around, that it was kind of starting to get hot. Like, it would get hot and then it would, like, cool down, and, like, I'm like, man, it feels like it's got an air bubble in it. And I honestly, the other day, I didn't run it as long as I should have. I normally run them longer, but I was trying to get it out the door and try to go drive it. Well, like, I opened up the cap, and sure enough, it was low, and this reservoir is low also, so it definitely had an air pocket in it. So I'm gonna have to run this and bleed the cooling system a little bit better. But in the meantime, since I ran out of fuel, I'm gonna put this fuel pump in. So I've got the rear seat out. I'm gonna start taking these panels off and start looking at it to see what I gotta do about putting this fuel pump in. All right, so I got the fuel pump assembly out of the car. So one of the things I was kind of worried about is, like, all the aftermarket fuel pumps, specifically for Minis, they have a 90-degree bend right here. You can see, like, that one's obviously different than any universal, and I was kind of concerned. I didn't know where exactly. I thought maybe it was sitting up higher and, like, it was going to cause some interference problems. But I'm looking at it and I'm like, I don't even know why it matters. I don't think it does. So I think this one's going to drop right in there. We're going to take it apart and find out. All right, so I'm working on this fuel pump situation, and so this is like the basket, right? And the fuel pump sits down in here. So this is the original one, and you can see it's got like this big black piece on there, and it sits a lot higher than the new one. It's also a lot bigger around. So basically it's meant to go down here, and then the bottom of this fuel pump clips into this screen. So this is just the filter screen for the bottom of the fuel pump. None of that is going to work for the pump that I have, because obviously the pump that you get for universal ones has, like, these filter screens on there. It doesn't hook up to that. I also can't seem to get the screen to go on this side of it, which is unfortunate, because it'd be nice if it was all the way in the bottom of the tank. But I think my only option is I'm just going to have to shove it down in here and, you know, get it as centered as I can, and then just hope for the best. I mean, I've done it before. It's not ideal. Obviously, you lose a little bit of fuel capacity because it's not all the way down to the bottom. But, I mean, I never run my cars down below quarter tank anyway, so I think we'll be okay. So I'm gonna try and figure out the best way to get this thing, like, 100%, like, as snug as I can, because there's only so many things you can actually shove in the gas tank that aren't going to just disintegrate with fuel anyway. So I'm gonna see what I can do here. Okay, so here is what I came up with. Basically, you know, like I was showing, I just shoved it in there with the sock on there. I had a couple pieces of like this, I don't know, almost like we'll call it a fuel pump koozie. I cut it in half, put that on there, and then I put a little bit around there. It sits up just enough that it's hitting the O-ring that was holding the other one in, kind of sealing it up. So I think that one's gonna stay in there reasonably well. I used the hose that came with the AEM fuel pump. For some reason, they sent just regular hose clamps. I don't know why you would do that, knowing damn well this is going in something that's going to have higher fuel pressure. But yeah, so I put on some fuel injection hose clamps, and I took the original hose that was on the old fuel pump, and I just cut it off, and then I took this little connector off, put that on there so I can connect it up to the fuel line. Obviously, this still isn't 100% ideal because this is a little bit smaller than you know, I would like. If I don't have enough fuel, it's probably going to be because of the feed line, which in that case, I'll have to run a new hose from here up to the feed on the car and then run it all the way to the front of the car, which right now I'm not going to do that. I'm just trying to, yeah, get by with what I got. So we're going to do this. And then I wired in the fuel pump to the existing wiring. The wiring that was coming from here, as far as I can tell, it is the same size wire, so I should be okay just wiring it like that. And yeah, I think it's ready to go in the car. Alright, so I just made that first pull with the new pump. Seems like it worked. I was having a problem with the wiring. I was gonna upgrade the wiring because according to AEM's instructions, it says you have to have a minimum of 12 gauge wire. And I'm like, okay. So like I had 12 gauge wire and I was fully prepared to do that. But then I started paying attention to a little bit closer to the wiring that was coming off of the pump and going into the basket or whatever. And I'm not entirely sure if that's 12 gauge. I think it's 14. And that pigtail that came with the pump, that is what it looks like 14. So if it's 14, why would they tell me it's a minimum of 12? That doesn't make any sense. And as far as I can tell, the wiring coming from here up to the relay is also 14. So I was like, I guess we're just gonna try it and see what happens. But I mean, it seems to have worked. It definitely ran a hell of a lot richer that time on top, which was no surprise at all, because I had added a whole shitload of fuel trying to compensate, thinking that, just trying to test to make sure it didn't actually want that much fuel. So now I'm pulling it back out, and as you can see, my windows are all covered in water because it's been raining and the road's wet. So I don't know how much I'm gonna really get accomplished, because that first pull, it was spinning, and I did a 4th gear pull hoping that maybe it wouldn't spin as much, but it was still trying to spin. So, and obviously pulling fuel out, not gonna help the spinning factor. It's gonna spin more because it's gonna be making more power. So I don't know, I'm gonna make another one, see how it does. If it's still spinning too much, I guess I'll just have to wait till another day. So on that pull, yeah, I was actually able to get traction because I got onto it a little bit earlier so I could stay downhill. So I put a little more weight on the tires and it worked. I'm still a little bit rich, so I pulled a little bit more fuel out and I'm gonna try it again. That was a little bit closer. I made some more changes. I think I'm gonna call it for the day and probably come back to it another day, because it's still sprinkling and I've got some other things to do. But it's hitting like 13, like all the way, obviously Supercharger boost builds towards the red line. Right at the top, it's hitting like, it's like at 13.8 PSI. So it's she's scooting. It feels pretty good. It'll be interesting to actually finish up the tune, get it all dialed in, because I haven't even messed with timing yet. Just fuel, and it still need to lean out a few spots, and there's a couple of spots like cruising like on tip-in I was having problems with, and I kind of messed with that a little bit, and I got most of it sorted. There's a couple spots I've noticed that every once in a while it occurs, so I got to get it to reoccur so I can actually like fix it. But I think yeah, for the moment it's doing pretty good. Yeah, hopefully we can get back to this tune here pretty soon, because I'm hoping to go roll racing this weekend, but we'll see. Alright guys, I think I'm going to end the video right there because I've got way too much content, and I'm sure you guys don't want to watch a 40-minute long video, so yeah, we're going to split it up. But make sure you like and subscribe and stay tuned to the content, because yeah, we got more coming, so peace out.